Listen carefully, because this moment is not random. The very fact that you found these words means the field has turned its gaze toward you. You are being observed, not by eyes, but by frequency. Every thought, every emotion, every pulse of attention is rippling through the quantum fabric, waiting for your command. Most people drift unconscious through this divine surveillance, leaking energy into timelines they never chose. But you were meant to awaken now. The observer has noticed you. The question is, will you finally notice it back and begin to direct your energy with intention? When awareness first dawns, it feels like a subtle disturbance, a tremor in the background hum of reality, something that makes you pause mid-thought and wonder if you've ever truly been awake before. That is the first sign of the observer noticing itself through you. Awareness is not something you gain. It is something that has always been watching, waiting behind the noise of your thinking, behind every decision you thought you were making alone. It was there when you looked up at the sky as a child and felt a sudden recognition you couldn't name. It was there when you caught a glimpse of yourself in a mirror and felt the eerie weight of being seen, not just by your reflection, but by something deeper, something ancient. That is awareness in its pure form, the moment consciousness realizes it is not trapped inside the mind, but is the light through which the mind exists at all. And yet, most people never reach this point, because they assume awareness is passive, like sight, a function that merely receives. But true awareness is not observation in the ordinary sense, it's command. The quantum field doesn't respond to what you think you deserve, it responds to what you know you are. Awareness is the signal that tells the field, I am now conscious of my role in the unfolding. From that moment on, the dance changes. You stop being a particle tossed around by invisible forces and begin to act as the wave directing the motion. This shift isn't loud or dramatic. It's almost imperceptible, like the silence between heartbeats. But once it happens, you can never truly return to unconsciousness. Imagine awareness as the moment light enters a dark room. The furniture was always there. Your beliefs, emotions, patterns, timelines. But until the light touched them, you couldn't see how they shaped your reality. The instant you observe, the configuration begins to move. That's the paradox of consciousness. The act of seeing transforms what is seen. And in the quantum field, that transformation is literal. The observer doesn't just record reality, the observer creates it. This is why your life seems to rearrange itself after an awakening. Things fall apart not because you've lost control, but because your frequency is reorganizing everything to match your new level of awareness. Awareness is not about thinking more, it's about being more present in what already is. The mind believes control happens through effort, but the field responds to coherence. The more deeply aware you become, the less energy you waste trying to manipulate outcomes, and the more naturally you align with the timeline that already matches your vibration. That's the subtle mastery of consciousness. When you stop forcing the current and start remembering that you are the river. And in that remembrance, something profound begins to unfold. The realization that even before you woke up, you were being seen. The field has always been aware of you. Every thought, every sigh, every micro-expression of your inner world has been recorded in the geometry of space-time. You were never hidden, never separate, never outside the gaze of creation. You were simply unaware of your own participation in that gaze. When awareness returns, you meet the eyes of the universe, and they are your own. This realization can feel overwhelming at first. It means every complaint you whispered, every secret dream you postponed, every word spoken in despair has already shaped the probabilities dancing around you. Awareness shows you that the universe is not ignoring you, it is echoing you. Every outcome, every pattern, every coincidence is evidence of the field responding to your signal, faithfully, neutrally, without judgment. Awareness is not punishment, it is proof of your creative authority. You begin to see that reality is not happening to you but through you. And then, an even deeper truth emerges. Awareness is love in its purest form. It doesn't demand, it doesn't resist, it simply sees. The act of truly observing something, your pain, your fear, your longing, without trying to fix it, alters it. Because the moment light touches shadow, the shadow can no longer remain the same. When you become aware of your unconscious patterns, you're not fighting them, you're illuminating them. You're showing the field where you no longer wish to feed energy, and the field listens instantly. This is why those who awaken often experience waves of synchronicity. It's not magic, it's feedback. The universe is mirroring your coherence, As your awareness grows, the outer world starts keeping pace with your inner realization. People appear, doors open, timing aligns. That's not luck, that's resonance. The field recognizes that the observer has stabilized, and it begins collapsing realities with greater precision. The clearer your awareness, the cleaner the collapse. But awareness also humbles you, because you start to understand that every projection you've cast on others, every judgment, every label, every story, has been a reflection of your own unclaimed energy. You see how every external event was secretly an internal teacher, guiding you toward this very moment. Awareness reveals that there was never chaos, only feedback. And once you recognize that, you stop blaming and start recalibrating. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin to ask, "What frequency am I transmitting that invited this form of response?" That question doesn't come from guilt, it comes from power. Because to be aware is to remember that you are the point where the infinite becomes personal. You are the field, observing itself into form. Every realization you have ripples through the lattice of reality, adjusting probabilities not just for you, but for the collective. The expansion of your awareness shifts the potential of the entire grid. That's how powerful you are, not metaphorically but literally. Awareness changes physics. It's not a spiritual idea, it's quantum law. As this awareness deepens, life stops being a series of problems to solve and becomes a field of frequencies to align with. You no longer chase outcomes, you tune them. You begin to live from the inside out. Awareness becomes your navigation, a soft pulse guiding you toward coherence. And coherence feels like truth. It feels like peace, even in the middle of chaos. It feels like finally breathing with the rhythm of the universe instead of against it. So when I say, awareness is the first frequency, I mean it is the beginning of conscious creation. It's the signal that wakes up the field and says, the observer has arrived. Without it, your energy drifts, scattered, unfocused, diffused across endless distractions. With it, your presence becomes gravity. The field begins to organize itself around your intention, magnetizing the people, places, and possibilities that resonate with your new awareness. And that is where direction begins. Before you can direct your energy, you must become aware of where it's already flowing. Awareness reveals the leaks, the emotional loops, the unconscious stories, the habitual thought forms, all the invisible places where you've been giving your power away. But once you see them, you can no longer unconsciously feed them. Observation collapses them. Awareness doesn't fight the shadow, it absorbs it into light. You were never meant to control reality. You were meant to be aware of it so purely that control becomes unnecessary. That is the paradox at the heart of the quantum field. The less you force, the more you influence. The less you chase, the more you attract. Because awareness itself is the purest form of direction. It tells the universe, I am here, I am awake, and I remember who I am. And the moment that declaration vibrates through your field, the entire fabric of creation rearranges to reflect your remembrance. That is the initiation of the awakened observer, not to seek more knowledge, but to embody the knowing that has always been watching through your eyes. You don't need to become anything. You only need to remember that you are the awareness through which everything else becomes real. And as you remember, reality remembers you. When awareness first stirs in you, it feels less like something new arriving and more like a veil being lifted. There's a soft shock in realizing that you've been seen all along, by a presence that isn't outside you, but woven through you. Awareness isn't something you create, it's something that begins to notice itself through your gaze. It has been behind your every question, every doubt, every flash of wonder. When you finally feel it, it's as if space itself has turned toward you and whispered, now you remember. Awareness isn't passive watching, it's the first act of creation. In physics, observation changes the particle. In consciousness, awareness changes the world. The moment you become aware of a thought, that thought can no longer rule you. The instant you notice an emotion without being swept away, its charge begins to dissolve. Awareness doesn't fight the storm, it stills the air around it. You start to sense that what you call reality has been responding to your level of noticing all along. Imagine awareness as light entering a room you've lived in for years without really seeing. Suddenly the shapes of the furniture, the colors on the walls, the paths worn into the floor reveal themselves. Nothing has changed, and yet everything has. The more clearly you see, the more naturally the room rearranges itself around your clarity. That's how the quantum field behaves. It reflects coherence. The clearer your signal of attention, the more precisely energy aligns to it. At first, awareness feels delicate, easy to lose when the mind rushes back in. But the more you rest in it, the more you realize it's the most stable thing you've ever known. Thoughts come and go, moods shift, plans fall apart, yet this quiet witnessing remains untouched. It doesn't judge or label, it simply is. When you identify with that stillness instead of the noise, a new kind of strength emerges, one that doesn't need to defend itself because it is made of everything it once tried to resist. And this awareness has always been mutual. You are not the only one observing, the field observes you too. Every vibration of your heart, every belief you hold about yourself, is noticed, recorded, and mirrored by the intelligence that permeates everything. You are not being tested or judged, you are being translated. The universe speaks in frequency, and awareness is the language. The more consciously you speak it, the clearer the echo becomes. With this realization comes responsibility, but not the heavy kind. It's the gentle understanding that your awareness directs the current of existence. Each time you choose to stay present instead of falling into reaction, you alter probability itself. Each time you breathe through fear instead of feeding it, you rewrite the pattern of your life. Awareness is the switch that turns destiny into design. There will be moments when this seems impossible, when awareness flickers and you fall back into old habits. But even then, something deeper is watching, waiting for you to notice that you've forgotten. That noticing is awareness returning. You can't lose it, you can only remember it again and again, until remembering becomes your natural state. As awareness deepens, compassion arises. You begin to see that everyone else is moving through the same dream of forgetting and remembering. You stop judging their sleep, because you recognize your own. Awareness softens the edges between self and other until they blur into one shimmering field. And from that field, creation becomes effortless. You no longer try to control, you participate. You no longer force change, you align with it. Awareness is the beginning of mastery. It's the silent yes that tells the quantum field, I am awake now. I am ready to participate consciously. And the field responds, reorganizing itself around your new coherence. Coincidences multiply, intuition sharpens, time bends. What you once called miracles become the natural outcome of clarity. This is what it means to be under quantum observation, to realize that life is watching through your eyes, waiting for direction. The moment you are aware of being aware, you step into the command seat of creation. You don't need to force the next step. You only need to keep seeing with that luminous attention that dissolves illusion and reveals truth. Awareness is not just the first frequency, it is the eternal one, humming beneath every heartbeat, inviting you to remember that you and the observer have always been the same. Energy flows where observation grows. You've heard the phrase before, but when you feel it, something fundamental in you begins to rearrange. You start to realize that attention is not invisible. It's the most tangible force you possess. Every second of your awareness is a beam of creative energy, sculpting the field around you. Most people scatter that light unconsciously, letting their focus flicker between fears, distractions, desires, and memories. And then they wonder why their lives feel fragmented, why outcomes blur and dissolve before they ever fully form. The truth is simple but startling. What you feed with your focus becomes form. What you withdraw your gaze from fades into probability. You can sense this when you're deeply present. Think of a moment when time seemed to slow, perhaps while watching the sky shift at sunset or feeling the heartbeat of someone you love. In those moments, everything outside your awareness dissolves, and the present becomes vivid, alive, magnetic. That's not just emotion, it's physics. The quantum field amplifies coherence. Wherever attention gathers, energy condenses. You are constantly emitting a signal that tells the field, this matters to me. And the field, without hesitation or morality, begins constructing reality around that focus. It doesn't care if you're thinking of your fears or your dreams. It only knows intensity. That's why unconscious focus is the silent architect of suffering. The more passionately you feed worry, the more structure it receives in the unseen. But when you consciously choose where to look, when you decide that your awareness will no longer be rented out to chaos, something extraordinary begins. The very act of directing attention transforms your frequency. You stop being a reactor and start becoming a generator. It's as though the photons of your consciousness align into a single beam, and suddenly the noise of the world quiets. You're no longer diffused light, you're a laser of intent. And a laser, even at low power, can cut through the densest material when its energy is unified. The paradox is that this direction isn't forceful, it's surrendered. You don't strain to hold your focus, you relax into it. Presence is not tension, it's coherence. When your awareness becomes steady, your energy begins to self-organize. That's why meditation, art, or even deep silence feel like returning home. They remind your energy where to gather. The field around you starts shimmering with new possibilities, because you're no longer sending mixed signals. You've become congruent, and the universe can finally read you clearly. This is the hidden power behind attention. It is both the brush and the canvas. Whatever you observe long enough, you begin to merge with. If you stare at limitation, you'll feel limited. If you linger in gratitude, you'll find abundance reflecting back from every direction. The universe doesn't speak in words, it speaks in resonance. So the language you're always speaking to the cosmos is the quality of your attention, and that's why distraction is not innocent. It's an energetic leak. Every unnecessary worry, every idle scroll, every fixation on what you don't want disperses your creative force into countless unchosen timelines. But don't judge yourself for this. Everyone has lived scattered at some point. It's part of remembering. The important thing is to reclaim your gaze, to bring your awareness home. You begin by noticing what captures your energy throughout the day. What conversations drain you, what thoughts loop without resolution. Every one of them is a siphon, and yet, the moment you see it clearly, you're free. Observation of the leak is already the sealing of it. You don't have to fight distraction, you simply stop feeding it. Like a plant left unwatered, it withers in the light of conscious awareness. Then, something subtle yet profound occurs. Your energy, once fragmented, begins to pool within you. You start feeling a quiet magnetism in your body, a sense of being centered, luminous, undivided. The mind becomes a servant to awareness instead of its master. From that still center, your thoughts gain power because they're no longer random. They're precise. Your words begin to carry resonance. Your presence begins to affect rooms without effort. This isn't mysticism, it's coherence made visible. When observation gathers energy, that energy radiates outward and reality must respond. Imagine the field around you as water. If you keep thrashing, the water ripples chaotically, and your reflection breaks apart. But when you grow still, the surface clears, and you can finally see yourself, and the reflection responds to your smallest movement. That's the quantum relationship between you and the field. Chaos is not punished, it's simply mirrored. Calm is not rewarded, it's simply amplified. The universe never decides for you, it only magnifies what you sustain. This is why ancient teachings speak of single, pointed focus, of prayer, of devotion. These aren't acts of pleading, they're technologies of energy. When you hold your awareness upon something with love rather than fear, the field begins to crystallize that vibration into matter. You become a living conduit through which the infinite expresses itself. You don't chase outcomes anymore, you invite them. You no longer push energy outward, you radiate it from within. And yet, there's a paradox here too. The moment you become too attached to what you're observing, you collapse it prematurely. True direction of energy requires softness, a focus without obsession, a vision without grasping. You hold your intention like a bird in the palm of your hand, gently enough that it can breathe, firmly enough that it doesn't drift away. The field thrives on balance. Desperation scrambles the signal. So learn to look with love, not demand. Awareness infused with gratitude becomes magnetic. Awareness tainted with anxiety becomes noise. This is the sacred art of attention. To love what you are seeing without needing to own it. To notice beauty without fear of losing it. When your observation becomes an act of devotion rather than control, everything you touch begins to bloom naturally. People feel seen by you in a way they've never felt before, because your energy isn't trying to take, it's simply shining. The same force that shapes galaxies begins flowing through your eyes, your voice, your gestures. You become a transmitter of harmony, and when that happens, the field rewards you with reflection after reflection of your coherence. Synchronicities appear not as surprises but as confirmations. The right opportunities drift effortlessly into your orbit. Your intuition sharpens until decisions feel guided rather than chosen, because the universe is no longer guessing your signal, it's attuned to it. You have become a stable frequency in a sea of noise, and stability is irresistible to energy. So when I say, energy flows where observation grows, know that I mean every heartbeat of your awareness matters. Every thought you linger on, every image you nurture in your imagination, every emotion you choose to sustain is a seed cast into the infinite. The question isn't whether you are manifesting, it's what you are manifesting with your attention this very second. You are never not creating. Even in doubt, you're broadcasting. Even in silence, you're sculpting probabilities with your presence. This realization can be humbling, but it's also liberating. You no longer need to chase external power because you recognize the source within you, the simple, radiant act of attention. You don't need to fix the world, you only need to observe it differently. The field will follow. As your observation grows more loving, more centered, more deliberate, the energy that follows will build worlds in your image. So take a breath. Gather your awareness. Feel how the act of noticing your own consciousness instantly amplifies it. That warmth in your chest, that clarity behind your eyes, that's your true influence. That's the place from which realities bend. Let your observation grow there, steady and bright. The field is listening, always listening, waiting for you to decide what deserves the light of your focus. Because whatever you bless with your awareness, the universe blesses into being. The collapse is your choice. That truth can feel both exhilarating and terrifying because it strips away the illusion that reality is something happening to you. You begin to sense that the world around you is not a fixed construct, but a living field of probabilities, waiting for the pressure of your focus to solidify it into form. The quantum field doesn't decide which version of your life becomes real, it waits. It holds every potential, each timeline, each possibility, like countless shimmering threads, vibrating in stillness until observation collapses one into being. And whether you realize it or not, you are always collapsing something. Every time you believe a thought, speak a word, or feel an emotion intensely enough, you select from infinity. You declare, this version of reality is real for me now. That's the quiet power of creation. It doesn't announce itself with thunder, it whispers through your choices. You collapse realities not just with intention, but with permission, by allowing your energy to harmonize with a specific vibration long enough for it to manifest. What you call destiny is simply coherence over time. The longer you observe something without doubt, the more real it becomes. The longer you feed something with uncertainty, the more unstable it remains, flickering between dimensions of possibility. Most people don't realize this. They live in constant observation of what they don't want, collapsing realities of fear, lack, and limitation again and again, not because they consciously choose them, but because they never withdraw their attention. They forget that the field is impartial. It doesn't discern between what pleases you and what pains you. It only amplifies what you sustain. So the universe isn't punishing you when you encounter the same painful patterns. It's mirroring your steady gaze. The field assumes you're still interested, because you're still watching. The moment you turn your attention away, the moment you stop feeding that unwanted pattern with the electricity of your focus, its structure begins to dissolve. That's what quantum physicists mean when they speak of wave function collapse. Observation gives energy definition, unobservation returns it to potential. Spiritually, this is what happens when you forgive, when you release, when you let go, not as an act of resignation, but as a declaration of sovereignty. You are saying to the field, this version of reality no longer represents my vibration, and the field, in its infinite precision, simply complies. The collapse is both a creation and a death. For something new to become real, something old must dissolve. That's why awakening often feels like loss before it feels like freedom. You're not being stripped of what's meant for you. You're shedding realities that can't sustain your new frequency. The relationships, identities, or paths that once defined you begin to lose coherence because they were built on the vibration of an earlier version of you. This disintegration isn't punishment, it's calibration. The old structures can't hold the light of new awareness, so they gently, or sometimes violently, collapse. If you can hold steady during that collapse, if you can resist the urge to rebuild the old simply because it's familiar, you'll begin to glimpse what true creation feels like. It's not effortful, it's inevitable. When you stop resisting the fall of outdated realities, the field begins weaving new threads in perfect synchrony with your current vibration. You'll notice how opportunities emerge not from planning but from resonance, as though the universe itself is conspiring to stabilize your new frequency. That's not coincidence, that's coherence finding its reflection. The paradox is that you don't collapse reality by trying harder to manifest, you do it by ceasing to doubt. You collapse through trust, through sustained awareness, through emotional congruence. When your belief, your feeling, and your focus unify, the field has no choice but to crystallize that frequency into form. This is why people who truly know something is done often see results that defy logic. They're not hoping, they're harmonizing. They've already selected the timeline internally, and the external world simply adjusts to catch up. It's important to understand that collapsing reality doesn't mean forcing outcomes. It means ceasing to observe alternatives that contradict your chosen vibration. You don't need to fight against doubt. You simply redirect focus toward what feels like truth. The universe doesn't reward struggle, it responds to steadiness. When your energy stops oscillating between yes and no, between faith and fear, the wave collapses into a singular form, and that form is what you experience as manifestation. This process is happening continuously, even in moments when you feel powerless. Each thought is a micro-collapse, each emotion a selection point, but the larger patterns of your life, the repeating stories, the long-term circumstances, come from the vibrations you've maintained most consistently. That's why awareness is essential. Without it, you're collapsing by default, recreating the same loops because they're the only frequencies you're familiar with. But the moment you become conscious of the pattern, you're free to choose differently. Awareness interrupts the automatic collapse. It pauses the momentum long enough for you to select a new timeline. And when you do, everything begins to rearrange. The people around you start behaving differently. Synchronicities increase. Your body feels lighter. It's not that the world outside you suddenly changed. It's that you've tuned into a parallel version of it that was always available. The field didn't create something new. It revealed what matched your new vibration. The collapse isn't an act of summoning. It's an act of alignment. You don't pull reality toward you. You step into the version of yourself that's already living it. To collapse consciously, you must first learn the art of not reacting. Reaction is the glue that keeps undesired realities intact. Every time you respond to the old with frustration or fear, you reinforce its existence. Observation collapses emotional charge cements. So the practice is to observe without attachment, to witness without identifying. When something painful arises, you can say, I see this, I honor this, and I choose not to feed it. That declaration loosens the energy binding the pattern to your field. Over time, the old reality dissolves like mist at sunrise, and what remains is the clarity of choice. And yet, you must also be gentle. The collapse is not a war against your past, it's a reunion with your potential. When you release a version of yourself, you're not discarding it, you're integrating it. Every timeline you've ever lived still exists, still humming softly in the background of the field. But your awareness no longer needs to dwell there. You carry their lessons, their wisdom, their imprints, and then you bless them into rest. In that blessing, energy returns to you. Energy that was once trapped in stories of fear or regret. This reclaimed energy becomes the power that fuels your next creation. Eventually, you come to realize that the collapse is happening not outside but within. Reality is only the projection of your inner state. When your inner world changes, the outer must follow. There's no negotiation, it's law. And so the true work is internal, shifting your observation, refining your feeling, stabilizing your vibration. The field merely translates that inner coherence into visible form. The outer world is the delayed reflection of your last choice. When you finally understand this, peace arises. You no longer chase outcomes or fear uncertainty, because you know that every reality already exists, waiting for your attention to select it. You start to live like a conscious artist, painting existence with the brush of awareness. Each breath becomes a brushstroke, each emotion a color, each belief a texture shaping the canvas of your life. You don't ask if the masterpiece is possible. You simply keep painting until it's visible. So the next time you feel powerless, remember the collapse is your choice. The field is watching, listening, waiting for your next signal. If you can resist the temptation to stare at what you don't want, and instead hold your gaze steady upon what feels true, the universe will reorganize around your conviction, because reality doesn't respond to effort, it responds to focus. And the moment you choose what to see, the invisible becomes inevitable. Your body is the quantum receiver. It always has been, though you've been taught to see it as fragile, mechanical, limited. A vessel to escape rather than a field to attune. But your body is not an obstacle to consciousness. It's the instrument through which consciousness experiences itself. Every cell, every nerve, every pulse of your blood is in conversation with the quantum field, translating frequencies into sensations, translating invisible waves into felt reality. The moment you begin to listen to your body as energy rather than flesh, it reveals its ancient language. You realize that every emotion you feel, every instinct, every ache, is information from the field. feedback about your alignment, not evidence of your weakness. The universe communicates with you not only through synchronicities or signs, but through sensations. Your heart flutters when something aligns, your stomach tightens when something distorts. These are not random reactions, they are quantum translations. The body is the antenna, the field is the signal, and awareness is the decoder. Most people spend their lives trying to control their minds while ignoring the wisdom already pulsing through their biology. They think the key to manifestation lies in affirmations or visualization, but true creation begins much deeper, in the electromagnetic dialogue between your nervous system and the universe. Science quietly confirms what mystics have always known: the heart's electromagnetic field is thousands of times more powerful than the brain's. That means your emotions, not your thoughts, are the dominant broadcaster of your reality. Your mind may declare abundance, but if your body vibrates in fear, the signal that reaches the field is contradiction, not coherence. The field listens to the frequency beneath the words. It doesn't respond to what you say you want, it responds to what you feel as true. That's why you can't lie to the universe. It mirrors the vibration you actually embody, not the one you pretend to hold. When your body and mind align, manifestation becomes effortless. You no longer have to repeat affirmations like commands. Your presence itself becomes the affirmation. The quantum field is like an echo chamber. It amplifies whatever frequency you sustain with emotional sincerity. That's why it's impossible to deceive the field. You can only harmonize with it. Your emotions are the language it understands best. Gratitude, peace, love. These are not just sentiments. They are vibrational codes that signal readiness to receive. When your body rests in those states, it begins radiating coherence, and the universe reorganizes to match that signal. But here lies the paradox. You can't reach those frequencies by suppressing the lower ones. You cannot leap to joy by denying pain. The body holds memory, vibrational imprints of every experience you've ever had. If you've ever noticed how certain situations trigger you long after they're over, it's because those frequencies are still resonating in your cells, waiting to be acknowledged. Awareness alone doesn't release them, feeling does. To raise your vibration, you must first allow the body to speak its truth. Let the anger move through your chest, the grief through your throat, the fear through your gut, not as something to fix, but as something to witness. When you stop resisting these sensations, they complete their frequency cycle and transform back into light. Emotion, when fully felt, becomes energy in motion again. That's the hidden alchemy of embodiment. The body doesn't need to be purified, it needs to be heard. When you stop treating sensations as problems and start treating them as messages, you bridge the gap between matter and consciousness. Your biology becomes a living prayer, a harmonized field of communication. You start to feel intuition not as a thought but as a physical hum, subtle, grounded, unmistakable. The more you trust this internal compass, the more magnetic your presence becomes. People will feel peace simply by being near you, because your nervous system will have become a transmitter of coherence. And that's when you realize the great illusion: you were never disconnected from the universe, only desensitized to it. Every heartbeat is a quantum pulse sensing you to the rhythm of creation. The breath entering your lungs is the same breath that moves through galaxies. The tingling in your skin, the warmth in your hands, the quiet in your core, all of it is evidence of your participation in the cosmic field. When you treat your body as sacred technology, it responds by revealing the deeper dimensions of existence. You don't need to escape your body to reach higher consciousness. You need to descend into it fully. When you ground awareness into the body, thought slows down. You begin to perceive subtleties that were invisible before. The texture of silence, the weight of intuition, the presence of life in every cell. You start to see that the body is not separate from the mind. It is the mind, condensed into form. Every thought has a chemical echo, every belief a biological signature. So if you want to shift your reality, start where the field starts, with the body's vibration. Breathe slower, relax deeper, let energy move without resistance. The more you honor your body's signals, the more refined your frequency becomes, until alignment is no longer something you practice, it's something you are. There's another secret hidden here. The body not only receives frequencies, it broadcasts them forward in time. When you feel an emotion with full awareness, that frequency travels ahead of you, shaping probabilities before you even arrive. Your future self feels the vibration you emit today. This is why rituals of embodiment, dance, breathwork, prayer, movement are so powerful. They're not mere expressions, they're transmissions. The universe listens to the language of the body far more attentively than the chatter of the mind. The way you breathe, the way you walk into a room, the posture you hold, all of it speaks to the field. And yet, the body is forgiving. Even after years of neglect, it will still whisper, still signal, still reach for coherence. The moment you turn your awareness inward, not to analyze, but to commune, it begins recalibrating itself. It knows how to heal when you stop interfering. It knows how to realign when you stop demanding perfection. The cells remember harmony. They only need permission to return to it. When you love your body without condition, you teach the field what unconditional love feels like. That vibration becomes your signature, and everything you encounter starts reflecting that same energy back to you. There will be days when the body feels heavy, when old frequencies surface again, when alignment feels distant, but even that is sacred. You are never out of alignment. You are simply witnessing a part of yourself coming up to be reintegrated. The field is showing you, through sensation, where energy has not yet completed its circuit. So instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" you begin asking, "What part of me is asking to be felt?" That single question changes everything. It transforms pain into participation, struggle into communication. You stop trying to escape discomfort and start letting it teach you. Eventually, you begin to live in a state of embodied awareness, where every sensation is sacred, every breath is a dialogue with creation. The field stops feeling like something out there and begins to feel like something breathing through you. You become both receiver and transmitter, both witness and wave. Your thoughts no longer need to command. Your presence itself directs energy. You realize that your body is not just part of the universe. It is the universe, localized into exquisite form, translating the infinite into the language of experience. So remember this: whenever you feel disconnected or small, the field has never stopped speaking to you. It speaks through your heartbeat, your breath, your sensations, your stillness. You are the instrument through which the universe hears its own vibration. To direct energy, you don't have to think harder. You only have to feel deeper. Let the body become your teacher. Let it show you where truth lies beneath thought. When mind and body move as one coherent signal, the field responds instantly, because it recognizes its own reflection. And in that recognition, the miracle happens. Not as something you summon, but as something that has always been trying to reach you through the rhythm of your own pulse. At a certain point on this path, you begin to notice that the act of directing energy no longer feels like control. It feels like surrender. The more consciously you try to command the field, the more it reveals that it has always been following your deeper vibration, not your surface intention. True mastery is not about force, it's about resonance. You stop trying to bend reality to your will and start realizing that your will, when purified through awareness, was always in harmony with reality itself. The illusion was that you needed to make things happen. The truth is that things were always happening through you, once you stepped into coherence. When you reach this stage, even the concept of manifestation feels too small. It implies separation, the you who desires and the universe that must deliver. But what if there was never a gap? What if the very moment a desire is born within you, the corresponding timeline ignites into existence? The field doesn't operate on delay, it operates on readiness. It doesn't ask when you'll get what you want. It asks whether your frequency has stabilized enough to sustain it. Most people try to manifest from scarcity, from the vibration of not yet. But the universe only mirrors vibration. To live as a conscious creator is to embody what you seek before it arrives, to hold the resonance so steadily that the field can no longer contradict it. This is why the work isn't about thinking more positively or visualizing harder. It's about deepening your coherence until your inner and outer frequencies are indistinguishable. It's about staying awake while the mind wants to fall back into old patterns, remembering that observation is creation. Even the small moments, how you respond to delay, how you treat others when you're unseen, how you speak to yourself in silence, are acts of quantum direction. Every choice of perception is a command to the field. Every emotion you sustain writes new code into the hologram of your reality. And yet, this realization is not meant to make you tense with perfectionism. The universe doesn't require flawless alignment. It requires authenticity. If you feel lost, be lost with awareness. If you feel broken, allow that fracture to be illuminated. The moment you stop pretending to be what you are not, your vibration rises. The field doesn't need you to be pure. It needs you to be true. Your honesty becomes the portal through which higher frequencies can enter. When you begin to live this way, life itself starts rearranging in visible ways. People, opportunities, synchronicities, all begin to orbit around the resonance you hold. You no longer chase alignment, you embody it. The separation between me and my manifestations dissolves. You start to notice that your outer world is just your inner field viewed through the lens of form. Every interaction becomes feedback from the universe, showing you where your energy is still fragmented and where it is whole. And with each revelation, you relax more deeply into the knowing that nothing has ever been outside your influence, not because you control it, but because you are it. The paradox deepens. The more you recognize your creative power, the more humility blossoms. You realize that the same intelligence orchestrating galaxies is flowing through your veins, guiding your breath, timing every encounter. The ego tries to claim ownership. I created this. But awareness knows better. You did not create the field, you synchronized with it. You did not command the miracle, you became the frequency where the miraculous is normal. And so, gratitude replaces striving. You begin to wake up each morning not with the question, what can I make happen? But with the curiosity, what will unfold through me today? The more you live in this surrendered awareness, the more the old reality loses its grip. Timelines that once seemed solid begin to dissolve. Relationships shift, careers transform. Even the texture of time feels different. You realize that reality is fluid because you are fluid. When you no longer resist change, you no longer suffer it. The unknown stops being a threat. It becomes your natural habitat. You start walking through life like a lucid dreamer, awake inside the dream but not bound by it. Fear fades because you finally understand that every outcome is a mirror reflecting your frequency, and your frequency is always within your care. And yet, even as you expand, there's a tenderness that emerges. You stop looking at others as unaware or asleep. You start to see them as fragments of yourself still exploring different harmonics of consciousness. Judgment softens into compassion. You begin to hold space rather than opinion. You learn that directing energy isn't about dominating outcomes. It's about broadcasting coherence into the collective field so others can remember too. Every thought of peace, every act of forgiveness, every moment of presence sends ripples far beyond your awareness. You are not just creating your reality, you are stabilizing the grid for others to awaken through. This is the quiet responsibility of consciousness, to realize that your vibration is not private. Every coherent emotion strengthens the field. Every act of resistance distorts it. You become aware that your internal balance contributes to the planetary one. The shift humanity is undergoing is not happening through politics or technology, but through frequency. As more beings awaken to their true energetic nature, the field itself recalibrates. You are part of that recalibration right now, not as a spectator, but as a signal. That's why you were drawn to this message, not by accident, but by resonance. The quantum observation isn't ending, it's deepening. The universe is still watching, still listening, still waiting for the next instruction from your frequency. And now, you understand that instruction isn't a demand or a wish. It's a vibration sustained with clarity and love. When you align thought, feeling, and body into coherence, you emit a signal that cannot be ignored. The field has no choice but to respond, because you have become indistinguishable from it. That is the highest state of creation, not effort, but embodiment. So as we close this revelation, I want you to remember, you are not learning how to direct energy. You are remembering that you already are energy. Every breath is a calibration, every heartbeat a broadcast. You don't need to do more, you need to be more precisely. Observe yourself gently, love yourself relentlessly, and the field will rearrange in your image. Now, take a breath. Feel the air move through your chest, the pulse in your fingers, the silence behind your thoughts. That's the field noticing you. That's creation waiting for your signal. Direct it not with demand, but with devotion. Speak to it through your state of being, because in this very moment, under quantum observation, the universe leans closer, not to test you, but to echo you. So, align, radiate. Remember, the next reality is already listening. If this message resonates in your field, share it, amplify it. Let others awaken through your vibration. You are not just the observer, you are the transmission. The shift begins now.